Good morning and welcome. I'm Audrey Addison Williams, and I am so honored to be standing here with Pauline Matua. I just want to share a little bit about how we met and a little bit about our history and this amazing woman before I introduce her. I was in Nairobi, Kenya. I've been there twice, the second time for 6 months, in Uganda for a year. I spoke with thousands of students, leadership training, new paradigm. And Pauline was one of the very first students. She and her husband were certified as facilitators for Journey of Self-Discovery. Who am I? What is my purpose? When I met her, she was a prominent businesswoman. She and her husband both were highly established business people. But to my surprise, elevated consciousness. She has served as my guru. I ran for president in 2016, and most of you don't know that because I was not able to get on the ballot. I traveled and campaigned, and Pauline was my spiritual advisor. And so she prepared this presentation with 5 people. She called together a team, Team Kenya Parliament of World Religions. When she came in 2015, she was my co-presenter, and the Parliament underwrote her travel expenses. And so we were not aware, I was not aware as an ambassador, when she began to recruit people to work with her on this presentation, that there would be no money to offset travel expenses. And so the one other person that was able to afford the airplane, she was denied a visa at the very last moment. And so Pauline, that day was a sad day. She got up and she got on the plane and she flew here alone to be with you and to share this amazing workshop. It is my honor and my pleasure. She is a coach. She's an independent businesswoman who travels globally. My dear friend and my teacher, Pauline Matua.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Audrey. That was powerful. I mean, for a minute, I'm thinking, who is she talking about? So thank you all for coming. I mean, this is an amazing day. It's been a journey of ups and downs. To be here, I'm grateful that finally this day is here. It was not always this easy because, as you heard what Audrey said, this was a presentation of 6 of us from Kenya. And today, I'm here standing by myself to share the presentation. So my name is Pauline Matua from Kenya. I am 43. I actually just turned 43. Yesterday was my birthday. And I think, thank you. I think for me, it was a birthday that came with a lot of stepping into the new. As I was on the flight from Nairobi, that was on the 1st. I left Nairobi on the 1st on the 31st, got to Toronto. I went through JFK, New York, and then, I mean, not New York, JFK. Then from there, I came to Toronto. And while I sat in the train, in the aeroplane, for the 14 hours I was there from Nairobi to JFK, it was a lot of things coming together of this journey that I've lived for the 42 years. I don't know whether you guys are familiar with the 7-year cycle. Because for me, I look at my 7-year cycles as a lot of disruption and a lot of coming together, shedding a lot of the things that I thought was who I knew I was. But there's been a lot of things that I picked from society, from my parents, from my culture, that along the way in every 7 years that have been let go. But I know the pain of trying to hold on to what I think I am and just realizing that nothing ever is coming to punish me. Everything in my life has been coming together to get me to this moment. And just being present to realize that everything that is showing up, as much as it's what I don't want to see, because I can promise you, not being here with 5 of my colleagues to do this presentation wasn't taken very well, for me especially, because on the 31st, when the last warrior, who is Carol, you'll hear her story, who was denied last minute, after so many hurdles that she had to go through, and the day before the flight, she goes to the embassy and she gets a regret that she couldn't make it. They didn't give her a visa. And they gave her a list of all the reasons as to why they didn't think she deserved a visa. And this was after four other people had dropped out. You can imagine my feeling. This was the day I was supposed to be departing. And all along, in my mind, I had played out how it was going to work out. Me and Carol finally are going to be standing here strong, sharing our story. And our presentation is basically discovering authenticity through religion and spirituality. And I believe standing here is a testimony of that, finding my authenticity. Now, I am from a family of 4, 2 boys and 2 girls. The eldest girl and the third born in a family of 4. So what happened is, in Kenya, what our culture is, the first girl is named after the paternal mother. So I was named after my grandmother from my father's side. So a lot was expected from me. And you learn to really sit and not speak your mind. But I was a very disruptive child growing up. I mean, I learned to always honor what I was feeling. And it was not taken kindly. Today, they call me very stubborn. And I have learned, I actually got a term, which I didn't even know there was a term like that, iconoclastic. So I call myself, I am an iconoclast because I disrupt a lot of things. And from a country like Kenya, which is very cultural in the African setting, there's a lot, especially when it comes to women. They don't have a voice to speak. And I grew up in a home where my mom was not one who was able to speak her mind. I could see her struggles, especially with my father. And being the first girl, I was young, and I just never understood why she never could say no to my father. And many a times I asked my mom, why did you do that? And I heard you complaining at the back. Why can't you just tell him no? Now, being a first girl, you are brought up to take care of the family. Now, for me, I did that until a certain point. After I finished my high school, I had observed a lot of heartbreaks in my mother's life. She got married when she was 19. She did her high school exam when she was pregnant with my firstborn brother. And immediately she gave birth, she moved into my father's home, and she was living with the family up country. So she never had exposure because it was in the village. She never really had a voice. So she learned to look at my father as her saving grace. So seeing from the village, my father came and uprooted her from the village and took her to the city. And eventually she went to college. But while she was in college, she was still getting other kids. So by the time she was 27, she had 4 kids with a lot to learn. But hey, she was a woman, and that's how you were expected to be. Do all the work and take care of the men. Now, my father is very, very strong in his character. They actually say, you're just as stubborn as your father. And I'm like, well, it's okay for as long as I get to speak my voice. So what happened is, when I finished high school, I always wanted to do food technology. I loved food technology. And back in our days, I finished high school in 1993. And we had to wait 2 years before we could get to university. So what happened is, when I joined university, I had to wait. And before then, I had to sit home and take care of the family. And for me, I knew this was not the life that I wanted to live. I had dreams, I had aspirations. I wanted to get out of this home and really live my life. So my dad would wake up every day and go to work. So eventually I convinced him, while I'm waiting for college, what I would like to do is, let me do some short courses. So I wanted to do French. So I got into a French college, and for 6 months I was doing French. I did until all the way for 8 months I did my diploma. Then eventually there was an opportunity in a private university that were offering scholarships. So someone who worked with my dad mentioned it to my dad. and said, why don't you ask your daughter, because I think she performed well, get her to really apply for the scholarship. So I did that. I applied for the scholarship and I was excited. I knew finally I would get to go to college and not have to wait for the 2 years. So once I applied, along the way, I discovered as I waited, I didn't get any response. It was like now 3 months and I'm wondering, okay, the scholarship is taking so long. So one day I decided to walk and take myself to the college and speak to the vice chancellor. And the vice chancellor told me, your father said you're not interested. And I was like, you're kidding me. Like what? I have been seated at home waiting for this. But my father said I wasn't interested. You can imagine my anger. And I kept quiet, but I went and asked my dad, why did you do this? How could you do this to me? And what he said is, you have been called to the public university, so why couldn't you just wait? And this was because he had to pay part of the scholarship. And what was required is he had to sell some of his property to pay for that. Wow. And in our culture, land, especially in Kenya, in our community, which is Kikuyu, the major tribe, land is an asset that everyone works so hard to make sure you have land. And there's no way he was getting rid of his land to pay part of my school fees. And I was like, are you serious? I mean, you have like 2 acres. All you needed to get rid of is a quarter. Help me live my dreams. But he said no. So I decided, well, I will find my path. And I began to do small jobs here and there to make my life easy. I put myself through college for the short courses while I waited. But for me, what I was called eventually to do in public university was a course in horticulture. I'm not an agriculture person. I mean, I never did agriculture in school. I have nothing to do with farming. But I went just to make sure that I was out of home. I went to boarding school when I was 9 years, and I learned to be independent. And for me, being home was misery because it reminded me of what I didn't want in my life. So because by then I had not figured out what I wanted to do, I decided, you know what? I will go to this campus. I know what they've called me to do is not really what I want to do, but I'm going to do it. Then while there, because it was a boarding college, I'd have to stay there. It would take me away from home and I'll figure out myself what I want to do later on. So when I went there, it was a miserable campus. Miserable. Like, I mean, everyone there was either very academic, which I wasn't, or they were drinking, and I did neither. So I was lost, but I was like, it's better than really just staying at home. And I knew I would never finish this course. It was a 4-year course. And I knew I was not going to finish. I would find my way to what I really wanted to do. So what I did is a friend of mine who we had been hustling together. The word hustle in Kenya is a very popular word. It's when you're trying to make it in the world. My friend would come from a different campus because we had gone to primary school together. We reconnected when we left high school and we were both hustling. She was an orphan, so she was fending for herself. And we managed to click and would get small jobs together. So half the time I was in her campus. And most people actually thought we were in the same campus. Now, the campus I was in was out of town, not in Nairobi. I grew up in Nairobi. So I had many friends in the university in Nairobi. So I spent most of my time there with her. And eventually she got a job in Kenya Airways as a flight attendant. And she would always come to visit me. At that point, I felt like I had lost my friend. She had the life, she was 21 years, she was flying the world, she had the money. And I was like, okay, so what do we have in common now? And well, she would always come and visit me and she'd be like, Pauline, this is not you. You're so miserable. What are you doing in this college? And I'd ask her, so what would I rather do? Stay at home? I mean, I'm good here. It's fine. I'll stay here and figure out. I, at that point, wanted to do hotel management. By that time, I figured out I wanted to do hotel management. So I had applied to several colleges in Switzerland for hotel management, looking for a scholarship. She told me, you know what? It had been 6 months since she had joined Kenya Airways. And she told me Kenya Airways is actually looking for flight attendants. Why don't you just apply? You want to do hotel management. I mean, it won't hurt you. There'll be exposure and you get to see the world, and then you can eventually pay for your hotel management. And for me, that was like the angels singing in my ears. Like, finally, I got my freedom. So I was like, okay, it won't hurt. So I went to the newspaper and applied. Now, at the time, getting a job in the airline, Kenya Airways is the biggest airline now in Kenya and now in Africa. You had to have connections. You needed to know people to help you go through. And I was like, who am I? I knew no one. I showed Pauline. I also didn't know anyone. Just apply and try your luck. So that's exactly what I did. I applied, and I never told my parents that I had applied. And I remember prior to that, I told my dad, that was the first year I was in campus. And I told my dad, before the end of this year, I'm going to drop out. I will not finish university. Now, in a family of 4, being the first girl, I was the only one who had made it to campus. So I was a pride of my father. He would get his bragging right to say, you know what? Finally, my daughter is in campus. And here I was robbing his pride. And he told me, for as long as you live under my roof, you shall finish that degree. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to finish. And don't worry. Before we get to the vacation, the first holiday, I will have gotten myself something to do, and I'll leave your house. So that was the time we were going into a 3-month break from university. And I knew this was my break. Finally, I would leave his roof. So I applied for the job. We were on holiday at home. And what I did is I went for the interview. And I can promise you, even the outfit to wear for the interview was because they had very particular things you needed to wear. I didn't have the suit. Now, the same outfit my friend who recommended me to apply for the job, she wore is what I wore. I mean, and it was amazing. I went for the interview, and there was like 5 people waiting to go in for the interview. And they were confident, and they were sharing how, you know who's on the panel? There's a HR manager, this is his name, and there's this guy. And I'm looking at them like, are this the guys I'm supposed to be going in with? Oh my God, I'm so doomed. My time came and they called me in, and I was shaking like a leaf. I was nervous like hell. So I got into the room. They asked me to sit down, and they told me, okay, Pauline. They asked me questions. And guess what? Every question they asked me, I didn't know.
You know?
I had no answer. I did not know what to say. I was clueless. And at the end of the interview, I was like, I just messed up big time, big time. And anyway, I'm not going to get the job. And they asked me, anything you'd like to say? I said, no. I said, okay, thank you. We'll get back to you. And I left. I said, hey, I tried. And you know what? 2 weeks later, my friend calls me because I gave her number for contact. She calls me and tells me, Pauline, where are you? Kenya Airways has been trying to call you. And I'm like, what? She said, yes. They said tomorrow. She had been looking for me for 2 days. She hadn't seen me. Tomorrow, you're supposed to report to the head office. I was like, what? Okay. So I went the next day, and they told me, you were successful, and we need you to go for immediate medical examination because in 2 days you have to report for training. And I was like, oh my God, finally. I went home and I told my mom and dad, you know what? I'm reporting to Kenya Airways tomorrow, and I'm leaving. I'm moving out. And they looked at me like, wait, you got a job? When did you do the interview? I said 2 weeks ago. And they called me and said, I made it and I need to report. And I am finally moving out. I was 20. And my dad asked me, so where are you moving out to? I said, I don't know. But I'm moving out. I had spoken to a friend of mine who I was in school with, And I had told her if it was okay for me to move into their house with her parents. And she said, of course, Pauline, anytime. Now, training was 3 months in Kenya Airways. They would give you just an allowance to allow you to get to work. So she was ready to allow, she was kind enough to allow me to stay with her until I was stable. So for the 3 months training, I lived with her. And I was every day, it was easier for me actually to commute there to go to the head office. And I did my training. I finished the training and I got the job in Kenya Airways and I started flying. And I can promise you that journey, when I sat on 31st October, coming here to Toronto for this presentation, there was a lot of, it was a moment of my awakening because I realized I worked in Kenya Airways for 11 years. As a flight attendant, and I flew everywhere in the world, just like, it was an international airline. And for the first 3 years, being that I was single, it was fun. I got to see the world. It was, a free place. We lived in 5-star hotels. We had the life. I had the money. And I moved out eventually with my friend who recommended. We lived in a 3-bedroom house and had the life. My brothers, who are way older than me, eventually moved into my house. And my sister, younger sister, moved into my house. So I basically became the breadwinner of my family because, hey, I had the life. And now they were taking advantage. Now, eventually, I got tired of taking care of everyone. I met my husband. And remember my initial story? I told you I was a disruptor. I'm an iconoclastic. So I grew up telling my parents, because I never loved their marriage and I didn't think that was marriage. And I grew up telling my mom and my dad, if this is marriage, I'm never going to get married. This is not what I believe marriage should be like. You've not been an example to show me what marriage is. So eventually life happened. I met my husband in the airline, my current husband now, and things changed and we got together and we fell in love. He is my soulmate. And I got to the point where I was like, okay, we have to get married. And he proposed. And I went to my dad and my mom and told them, you know what? I'm getting married. And they looked at me and they're like, you getting married? What changed? I thought you were never going to get married. I said, that was then. Things have changed. Now, my husband is from a minority tribe. I'm from the majority tribe in Kenya, Kikuyu. If you've heard of Kikuyu tribe, it's the bigger tribe. The current president, Uhuru Kenyatta, is Kikuyu. That's where I am from. And my husband is Kamba. And Kambas, with the Kikuyu, are looked down upon. It's a minority tribe. So when I went to tell my husband my dad about me getting married to my husband, my dad didn't take it well. He said, your husband is Kamba. Do you have an idea who the Kamba people are? Now, the Kamba people are believed to be practicing witchcraft. And I said, Dad, with all due respect, the only reason why I came to you is out of respect, because you know me. I would easily get married and would elope, and you'd never, ever hear of how I got married. I'll just come and tell you, this is my husband, we got married. But I'm giving you this privilege to meet my husband and attend my wedding. So I'm not asking for advice. I know you love me, but this is a person I love. And for me, I am only seeing his heart. It's not about where he comes from, what color he is from, his height or anything. And it was really a very tension-filled journey to get married. Now, getting married, I chose to get married, have a garden wedding. At the time, I was Catholic. I was raised up Catholic. So we had to get married, and my husband was also Catholic. We had to get married in a Catholic church. So where we attended church, where we were living at the time in Nairobi, I went, approached the church, and I told the priest that I needed a garden wedding. Now, the priest told me, according to the Catholic Church, we do not do garden weddings. I told him, but I want a garden wedding. So how is that going to happen? He told me, unfortunately, that's not possible because Catholic Church has to have an altar and it has to be in a building. But if you want this, what I would recommend is probably go to the head office. And I took myself to the head office. And I said, you know what? I would like to see the cardinal himself. If he's the one who needs to approve for me to have a garden wedding, then I need to speak to him. So when I went there, I found the deputy to the cardinal. And he was this amazing, very disruptive priest as well. And he told me, he was Father Ngugi. He told me, you know what? You want a garden wedding? Tell me, day, time, when should I come? I was like, okay, this is my wedding day on the 10th, and it's gonna be here. And he said, I shall be there. And there's a lot of things that you have to go through. There's a lot of ceremonies. You have to go through some 3 months training in church. You have to do some marital classes. I did none of that. He just showed up at the wedding day and united us. And I had my garden wedding. It was a Friday. At the time, that was in 2003. There was no weddings that were done on a weekday. But I wanted my wedding on a weekday. My mother and father, they said, you're crazy. There's no wedding that's done on Fridays. I said, but my wedding is going to be on a Friday. And they sent a whole lineup to try and talk me out of it and make me move my wedding to a Saturday. And I remember I told my mom and dad, I totally feel you. And my wedding again was a small wedding. I wanted 150 people. Now in Kenya, my friend is here from Kenya. It is a village. The whole village has to come to your wedding. And I said, it's my wedding. I'm footing the bills. My wedding's gonna be according to what I want, 150 people. My dad told me, we are from a big family, so you know what? It's not gonna work. You need to take care of your cousins. I said, you know what? I know people. I don't know, the people you're talking about, they don't even know who I am. So why should I hire a bus for them to come to my wedding? I'm sorry, my wedding is 150 people. And he told me, this is impossible. So who am I supposed to choose? I told him, one, you're a guest in my wedding. So you choose and tell them you're a guest. And you've been told only 20 people can come. So the rest, they can come and talk to me, because even I'm not going to invite all my friends. It's supposed to be an intimate wedding, and I'm going to remain doing an intimate wedding the way I want it. If you guys would like to renew your vows, I told my dad, you can as well change and provide all this transport for them. But for now, my wedding, you need to work with me. So at one time, my dad got very upset, and he told me, you know what, I'm not going to come to your wedding. I said, okay, that's fine. You don't want to come to the wedding? No problem. It will be you who will have to leave without ever having taken your daughter down the aisle. I spoke to my big brother and I told him, you know what dad said? He won't come to my wedding unless I do what he wants. And I'm not doing that. So he told me, no worries, I'll walk you down the aisle. And I told my dad, okay, my brother's going to walk me down the aisle. And of course, I mean, he would not see it, be alive and not come to my wedding. So eventually he did budge. He was very upset and he came to the wedding. It was a Friday wedding. It went well, amazing, and things happened. But our relationship from that point was very tense. And for me, I knew I had to honor me to really live my life, because I had seen what my mother had become. She was very bitter because she never got to speak her voice. And because my family and my husband's family are from two different tribes, and each of them wanted to practice their culture. And I said, you know what? I didn't grow up with all this culture. I grew up in the city. My dad did not show me any Kikuyu culture, but now conveniently, when it was convenient for him, he chose to throw culture on me. And I didn't know any culture. And I told him, I didn't grow up with culture or tradition. You tell me it's the Kikuyu tradition, but you didn't teach me that as a young child. So why should I honor it now? I'm going to live my life. And when I feel drawn to something, I'm going to do that. So eventually, I got kids. And again, Kikuyu culture, when you get kids, the kids are supposed to be named, according to the Kikuyus, they are named on the paternal side. And my mom, my dad wanted me to name them. Now, remember, I didn't grow up with any tradition. And for me, I really didn't care. I mean, whatever names the kids were given, and I chose Swahili names to really give my kids an identity as Kenyans. And my dad told me that, I have 2 boys and 2 girls. Well, my dad didn't get the chance because my first son is my stepson. Then my own biological children are 3, my son and my 2 daughters. So when I was getting my daughters, my mom knew at that point that it was a time she would actually create a bond with me, because remember, I went to boarding school when I was 9 years. So my mom and I really never had a bond. My mom wasn't there. So I learned to fend for myself and be there for me. So I didn't know how to approach my mom. She didn't show me how to love. So she always craved for that. And I told her, you know what? I have no intimate things to share with you. And it's not because, I hate you. It's just because I don't feel that you've been there for me. I have learned to be by myself. And that's why I live my life the way it is. So she was very offended. She tried to force that relationship. But unfortunately, in our culture in Kenya, again, remember, I'm a girl. And girls, the first girl is supposed to take care of society. Now, I grew up taking care. Remember, I was an air hostess, rolling in the money with a good life. And everyone expected, Pauline, your sister needs to go to college, your brother needs a job. And I was busy taking care of everyone in the family. And one day when I got my family, when I got my kids, I told them, you know what? I love you guys. But you know what? I can't do this anymore. I need to take care of my kids. The only people I'm responsible for are my kids. And in my family, with my husband, it's been a journey of really finding our voices. My husband as well is the last born. Now, he grew up being told family comes first. And he would not understand how I would actually speak to my parents and refuse to do the things that they ordered me to do. He was not able to do that. But his family thought, I was a crazy woman because women are supposed to dress in a particular way. I don't do that. I dress and do as I wish. That doesn't happen from where he comes from. But I knew if I don't do this, there are many women and many girls who will never get to be authentic, and they will live for other people. And I've seen in Africa, I don't know about in the West, but in Africa, the thyroid disease is very prominent and common with women. And thyroid is basically not speaking your voice. It is manifested in your body. And if you do not learn to say what you want to say, because we're trying to fit into this template that society has given us, what we're creating is a generation of other sick people, because this is an energy. And our words and our dreams are an energy. And if this energy is not removed from us, because energy cannot be destroyed, it just creates and changes form. So what happens is, what you want to do, if you do not say that and share that, it goes back in you and it forms into something else. And we can see prevalent cancer, high blood pressure is on the rise. Why? Because people are not courageous enough to be able to take their own stand and decide, you know what? My life is basically about Pauline. And I only owe Pauline everything. And if I don't live based on Pauline's truth, then who am I fooling? Because I'm not here to please anyone, but I'm here to share who I am, because who I am is a unique being. And this unique being came here to do the work that I came to do. And what I have seen along the journey, everything has prepared me until this point. I know there were painful moments, but those moments at the time when I thought everything was working against me, the one thing I've come to realize is everything was working and conspiring to push me to be here. to be the blueprint to allow people to be able to stand there and share who they are, their power, because our inner power is who we are.
Yes.
We have to tap into the avatar, our higher self, and be true to that, no matter how uncomfortable it is. And we know we're living in a society where if we, and it doesn't matter whether male or female, you have to be in a space where you allow and break free from where you're coming from. Because as I stand here, I know there are people who've walked before me, my ancestors, who never had the voice to speak. And I am here to share the story so that I can allow them to stand and say, you did it for us. And if you don't do it, who's gonna do it for us? I have daughters, and I want my daughters to be free of any burden that society expects of them. I need them to create their own path. And I find our inner power is about our spirituality, because every aspect of our life is about our spirituality. Now, if we do not embrace that is in us, and do not find the language to share that with the world, who's gonna do that? Who's gonna do that? Because when I stand here, as I stand here, what I have discovered is that I know, like when I began applying, I participated in Parliament of World Religions in 2015. I was a co-presenter with Audrey, and that was where my mind was blown, because I got to see, and we're all here, you can see the love in this conference, where your uniqueness is celebrated by everyone. But we're in a world where your uniqueness is used against you because they want you to conform. They want you to be like everybody else. And who said being abnormal is bad? Because we need to be abnormal for this society to really accommodate us. And like I always say, why be normal when you can be abnormal? Because being extraordinary requires courage for you to be different so that other people can know that what they have is okay, that they do not need to fit into any box. We decide what box. And when that is not working, when the shoe you're wearing pinches you enough and you can't walk, then guess what? You find your voice. And you have been given this privilege to be in this space, in this world, so that we can change a lot of the things that our ancestors were not able to. Now, I come all the way from Kenya to share my story, but I know all of us have similar stories.
Yes.
Now, in Africa, we have the Ubuntu, and Ubuntu is basically, I am because you are. And basically, before coming to Toronto with the group that I put up together, we had 2 workshops in Nairobi to share the African experience, which is Ubuntu. And I realized what happened is every story is like my story.
Yes.
And every person who has walked in my life, who I have interacted with, whether they were kind to me, whether they were harsh to me, they were loving, I attracted them to my life. And they were just the teachers I needed to allow me to be polished, to be who I am right now. Now, I know this journey began with 6 of us, but I stand here alone, representing 6. And what I realized is out of the 6 of us, they all came to me to allow me to learn the lessons that I needed to learn to be who I am today.
Yes.
And when each person had served in the way that they came to serve, then the universe had another assignment for them. And that's exactly what our life is. Every assignment that comes to us, it is to prepare us for the next platform. But we have this mentality as human beings. We want to remain in our comfort zone. We want the familiar. We want to remain into this space where everything is comfortable and I know exactly where I'm going and I can be able to, move around, but that's not living. When we wake up every day, we're given the opportunity to step into the unknown and find who your higher power, your avatar, is there to lead you to. Now, we are here not living this moment. We are here having an idea of where we want to go. So when we get there, we have another idea of where we don't want to go. So do we ever leave? Because every time, right now, you have this imagination of how my life is going to be. Oh, in another 5 years, I'm going to be there. So in this 5 years, while I'm here, I have these amazing people in my life. But I am not paying attention to what these amazing people have brought in my life. Because every connection, every space we sit in is sacred. And it is there to expand us, to open us, to realize what's in us. But we are busy blinding ourselves from what is right in front of us, hoping that where we're going is better. But where you're going, you have even no idea what is ahead of there. What you think is ahead of you and what you think is what you need is a limited version of who you are. Because what you're made of, you even have not begun to see it. You even have not tasted it. If all you can do is surrender and let go, whatever is coming to you, surrender to it. Feel it. Let it consume the whole of you, because then it will break you into seeing what treasure is in you. And if you are one to try and wish for things, what you are wishing for is just a speck of what you are. Because what you are, you can only experience it from you surrendering to what is right there in front of you. Pain, for example, because we've all gone through painful times. When I share my journey, it wasn't easy. You can hear it was a lot of me fighting to really speak. I lost friends. I lost family. But today, I realize I chose those people as my brothers and sisters to allow me to be who I am meant to be. They needed to poke me, to be open, to see who they are, to see myself as who I was created to be. And especially the people who hurt us the most are our most and greatest teachers. But this came from awakening, me realizing that I wasn't fighting. Why was I fighting them? They were just my teachers because they were reflecting what I needed to see in me. And that is why when I say Ubuntu is I am because you are. That which you project in me is because it's in me. I can only notice it because it's in me. I can't notice what I don't have. But we're busy fighting the next person, blaming rather than going within and looking at what we have and what we can do to make the space that I am a better place. Because it's about love. The world we live in and the tools that we need and the wealth that we need is about love and unconditional love. And my journey about finding my authenticity, initially it began with a lot of fight. And it was a lot of aggression I needed, and it had to happen in this way. But I have matured, and I've realized the last 42 years that I've walked my life, with an exception of the last 1 year, it has been awakening, shedding of that of trying to force things to work my way. But when I learned to align myself with what was ahead of me, I have found my power, because I now know that everything has been working in my favor. As I sat in the aircraft from Nairobi to JFK, all this came together for me. And I realized there are no regrets in life. Everything was perfect. imperfectly as it was, because it was preparing me to be here today. And I know wherever you are, whatever you're going through, you might be thinking everything is working against you. But guess what? Everything is working for you. If you turn around and see who you are and what you have, and begin to appreciate and be grateful for it, then everything that you're seeing changes how it connects with you. Because what you've been attracting is the vibration that has been aligning you with the same energy. Because when you change, because the only thing we can ever change is us. When I changed and began to embody love, I began to see the challenges with the love that they were bringing out of me. And all I can share with you is a journey to find my spirituality has been a journey of love. Initially, I never saw that. I saw it as a journey to fight me, to make my life a struggle, to make my life trying in every way. But I appreciate everything that worked in my favor to get me here. Now, the 11 years I worked in Kenya Airways, I got to a point where after the first 5 years, I got tired, just like everything else. I knew my heart was calling me for something greater. I didn't know what it was. But again, fear. Remember what keeps us stuck in our current known zone is fear. But I knew if I don't do what my inner soul, what my inner being was fighting and pushing me to do, then I probably would not be here today. In 11 years down the line, I decided to resign. I was the most miserable person with all the money, all the prestige you can think of. I had the family, the job, the house with the picket fence, remember? But unhappy. And that's the point I realized. The society's template was meant to keep us as prisoners. And I was willing to lose that, to find me, so that I could live what I came here to live. And it wasn't easy. But I remember I told my husband, this is the year, it was 2009, I'm gonna leave my job. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna leave my job. And at the time, remember I dropped out of university at one point, but eventually I went to university to do what I wanted to do. The university that I went to was for my father, but I decided I needed to do what I wanted to do. So when I was working in Kenya Airways, I joined the university and got my undergrad. But in the same year that I graduated was the same year I resigned, because I was fatigued. Emotionally, physically, mentally, I was just fatigued. And I needed to step out of this bubble that I was living in, to be able to lose myself, to find myself. And I had to do that. And 6 months, I had told myself I wasn't going to do anything. I was just going to be there with my kids. I would drop them in the morning, go to the gym, and just take care of me and really discover myself. And in the last 9 years, that's exactly what I've been doing. Discovering Pauline in the eyes of Pauline, not in the eyes of society or my mother or my husband or my children. Discovering Pauline in the eyes of Pauline. And when I speak today, I speak as me, because this has been my personal journey. And I hope that everyone can be courageous enough to lose that which is so dear. Surrender and detach from these things that hold us prison. Keep us from being as authentic as we are. Our self, our higher self, is our inner compass. But we are so afraid of that voice that we deny this world. The suffering we see is just the fear of us stepping into the unknown. And you know what I've discovered? The unknown is not as scary as you think it is. But you can only find that by finding your voice. Because every person who shows up in your life is a possibility and is a small you. All of you are a piece of Pauline. And I embrace each of you. And I thank you for sharing the space with me to be as truthful as the universe, as divine, is calling out of me. And the courage to show up, to be here. And my prayer to you is, as you live here, allow your voice to be heard for the sake of those who are not courageous and confident enough. It has to start with someone. So why don't it start with you? Save the people who are there, because everything is coming to serve us, to step into who we're here. This world will only change when I change. And this world can only change from a place of love. And just being loving and appreciating yourself for all that you have done and all that you, the whole of you, has allowed you to be until this point will help us change the world. Because peace on earth begins with peace with me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I will, this is just my team that we began this journey together. The 5 people who did not make it. But hey, they get to be here with us in spirit. So enjoy.
Hi, my name is Caroline Gaiduma. I see myself as a student of life because Carol is a journey that is still unfolding. I started from a place of darkness, from my state of unconsciousness. It led me to the darkest pit I've ever been in. I suffered depression, tried to commit suicide several times. But then at that dark point is when I asked myself, who am I? And it's been a journey unfolding every single day. Who I thought I was yesterday has changed to who I am.
Most people know me by Dana Hakasa. I was actually baptized Dana Hakasa through the church, which right now is, I'm not really following the church right now, but it is in a background and a foundation for me.
My spiritual journey is quite interesting. It began like about maybe 6 years ago, but not really 6 years ago. It began when my mother died. She died in 2012. And before she died, she was unwell for a while, about maybe 7 years or so. And we were looking for healing for her, healing. And there's no Christian church we did not go to. The Pentecostals, how they say they'll pray for you and you'll get better. And we visited all these pastors and churches so that they can pray for my mother to get better. Because we believe in this. It's very grown up. This is the way we were taught.
The starting point of my journey of awakening was triggered by a sense of being lost. And I like to say that I actually succeeded in killing myself because there were so many things I thought that I was, and issues happened in my life that I lost a lot of that. I lost a job that I had totally identified with. I lost a business that I had started and imagined that would take me to financial freedom. At some point, I lost my son, and so I was like, anybody who was calling me by that name, I didn't know how to respond to that. At some point, I had lost my marriage. So every single thing that I identified as was taken away from me.
I think when I was small, I've always been very curious about the supernatural, magical stuff. But growing up with my family background, they really never appreciated it. So I was always told to hush down and keep it down and not talk about magic, that is taboo, it's witchcraft, and all that kind of stuff.
It's been a slow journey where my husband is a Scout Catholic and he's wondering what I'm telling his children about that God is in charge, God is everywhere and in our hearts. But it is baby steps where my family and my husband is concerned. I speak to my children. I have an 18-year-old, a 15-year-old. They quite understand these things. Even the small one who is 11, they understand. And I speak to them and I tell them, you speak to your angels, you have guardian angels, you have teachers, you have guides who speak to them, they will hear you. I actually can tell them, speak to Shosho. Shosho is right there. They look at me and say, Mommy, you're being creepy. You really are now being creepy. Stop talking about that. I say, yeah, she's here. She's with us in spirit. You may not see her, but speak to them. Yeah, and speak to God.
Somewhere, let's say about 15 years ago, 15 years ago, I just really had this meltdown, like a breakdown. I was going through so much with my family, with school. I sat down and I called out and I thought to myself, what am I doing? And where is this God that I've been praying for all this time? And where is he? Why is he not doing anything? So I actually rejected God. I said, no, there's no God, and forgot about it, and I don't want anything to do with God. And I became an atheist, and I decided to start on that path. But somehow I was being called back. Something in me was just being called back. So my dad, one day he told me, he heard about my dramas and what I was going through and what had stopped me. He gave me this book called Conversations with God, and I read it. I was a bit skeptical about it, but I read it and it kind of resonated with me. I felt that maybe this is a God that I want to know. And so that began my spiritual journey, with Donald Walsh, loving.
The question that I remember, the first question that I was asked is, what color is Jesus? And for me, I thought, what does that matter? What color is he? What matters is what he came and what he did. And I was very cognizant that I had never asked myself that question. So after that night, then the next day, I think I just started to ask myself, or what does this mean? What does this question mean? And why is it disturbing me? Why is the question disturbing me? So that was the beginning for me for what I think was my awakening.
I really don't know when it really began, because I remember from as being very, very young, really seeking for God. And because the only place I knew was the church, I would go there and try to listen as much as I could in Sunday school, and I tried to follow the footsteps that I was told by my mother, by the teachers, but I never really felt that I was home. And I continued like that in life, but there's a point at which I stopped going to church, I guess as every teenager does at some point. Got married, and my relationships didn't work. And I just had issues with relationships. My marriage broke down, and that is when I decided to go into a counseling psychology course.
My name is Mamoyo Gadelu. I am a public sector governance advisor. That's what I've done for the last, say, 20 years, 15, 20 years, which basically means I do management for the public sector. I'm not doing as much of it now because I want to do more of what I call spiritual development work, which has knowledge which has changed my life for the last 6 years. About 2012, while I've been working on a business I wanted to set up for 1 year, I put out all my savings for that business. Basically, I ended up in a situation with no money. I mean, no money. And it dawned on me, I had to go back. I had to pack up my plant and go back to my mom's house. And nothing I knew could explain my situation or could explain it or even could show me the way out. And anything that I could think about my situation was basically catastrophic. I mean, how does one explain I'm a leading governance advisor, not just in this country, but in the region. How could I explain that I have no money? No money to even pay rent.
One time I remember when I was going through some of these things I would find on the internet. And it occurred to me, hey, this is what we've been told is New Age and in the church, and we should keep away from it. And at first I was in shock. I was like, oh my God, this is what we've been told to keep away from. And then immediately another thought came, but this is what has helped me become who I am today, become this forgiving, self-loving person who actually loves people more than I used to before. I'm not going to let it go. It's too good for me. I cannot let it go.
I remember praying a prayer, God help me. I've only prayed that prayer once or twice in my life. And I prayed that prayer and then walked to my library, to my books, looked at the bookshelves, which I usually do, like to pick a book that suits my mood. And I picked Eckhart Tolle's book. I had read the book before and I didn't understand it. But this time, it made absolute sense. And basically, I began to learn from that moment that I wasn't my thoughts, I wasn't my concept of me, which was my concept of me was this intellectual governance advisor, whatever, these mental ideas we have of ourselves. I wasn't that. What I was basically spirit that is always in the present moment.
I came back from Parliament. Parliament was really an awakening for me. The need that actually nourished my spirit to know the next step I was being prepared for is really come back and share the love that I experienced. I've never felt a love like that, like in Parliament, where there were people from all over the world, over 10,000 people. And there, with all our differences, yet all that came through was love. And in the midst of the world that we are in today, where religion has brought a lot of animosity, there was none of that. We just embraced each other with love. And that made something come alive in me. And I knew that was time for me to go and bring the same back home.
I remember praying and asking to meet people. Yeah, because there's a point at which I got and I felt very lonely and I felt I need to share with others. And now, yes, there are many Kenyans who are coming out who have found that religion per se is not working and there has to be more. Yes, and now I have quite a group who we support each other and it's quite exciting and I'm happy. And I'm looking forward to when most of our Kenyans are going to be able to see this, to be able to have their own way of being a spiritual person, seeking spirituality, their own way that actually works and meets their own inner needs.
As Africans, art is not something that we did. We didn't sit down and then say, I'm going to make art. It was an after effect of something that it was a residue of what we had already done. So for example, you go to the shamba, you go to harvest something and then you break out into song and then in the middle of the song then a dance comes through and then that looks like art, but it wasn't art. We didn't set out to make art. When you looked at a stool that you're sitting down on, right? You're sitting down there and you're feeling the earth has supported you and so you decide to make the stool in the likeness of the power that you're feeling. That wasn't art, that was spirituality, So I think that Africans are not artists. We don't make art, we make magic. We're magicians.
Wow.
Art
Yes,
is
yes.
art is a residue of who we are and how we live life. So Africans are not artists, Africans are magicians.
So that is the amazing group that got me to be here today. And you can hear all of us have had almost similar journeys. And now my plea and my cry to you is please connect with everything, every space, everything, the seat you sit on, the clothes you wear, the ground that supports you. Connect with it. Listen. What is it bringing out of you? What is it telling you in that moment? Because it's not by accident that you happen to be here. It's not by accident that every space you walk into, you are guided by something. Wayne Dyer always said, we think we're in charge, but we are always being done. We just are not aware. But how are you being done? Is it from a place of consciousness or unconsciousness? What is coming through when you're seated? Why don't you honor that very thing that is trying to get your attention? Because what holds us back is memories. And what I've learned in the last season of my life is I need to rid myself, delete memories, so that I can be pure to connect to this present moment, because nothing else is real. Everything is happening right now. But the only way I'm going to connect with this moment is if I rid myself of the old, of everything that is happening, that has been trying to come up. Because we think we know the next thought. Who has an idea of what the next thought right now is going to be? Do you have an idea? Now you walk out of that door and somebody shows up and they say something, and immediately you find a thought comes up. You had no idea you were thinking, or even that was in your consciousness. So until we can go back and separate ourselves, and last 6 months, I have been a practitioner of Ho'oponopono. You know of Ho'oponopono? Ho'oponopono is a Hawaiian spiritual tradition where it is you finding your self-identity. Yourself, I, being the higher self, the inspiration that allows us to connect to what is here for us. But for us to tap into that, because we are detached from what's happening right now, we create intentions on how we want to live, but we do not receive inspiration. And for you to connect to the inspiration that the divine is trying to pull out of you, because who you are is a void. Who you are is divine. But we're not able to tap into the divinity that we are, because we are filled with all these memories that keep replaying and pulling our attention. So how we connect with divinity to receive the inspiration that we need to step into the next moment is by us detaching from the thoughts that are holding us back. And how you do that is use Ho'oponopono. Now, Ho'oponopono is a cleaning tool. And it's basically this amazing, magical tool, words that allow you to be present right now without having to think, waiting to receive your guidance from divine. So what happens is when you say these 4 magical words, which is, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And you are saying this to divinity, not because you're sorry for anything, but because you're sorry of forgetting who you are. And that's the divine. Please forgive me. And thank you for reminding me that I am the divine. And when you clear yourself, the superconscious or the higher being or the divine goes through you, clears your subconscious memory, and brings to you an inspiration. Because inspiration is really the breath. The current breath you're having right now causes you to be alive right now. And that breath brings out in you what you're being called to do in the next moment. But for you to tap into this moment and what divine is calling you, you have to be open. You have to go back to zero. Who you came with. When you came here, you came as nothing. Clean, zero, clean slate. But for you to be able to go back to zero so that you can do all that you're being called, all that you're here to do, you have to always keep going back to zero. Empty yourself of this full cup that we show up in life, because we show up with a full cup. Now, how are you going to receive anything if all the time we show up with a full cup? There's really no space for anything. And the divine cannot give you what it needs you to do because you've already showed up with a full cup. So we need to empty our cup so that divine can pull us and give us the tools for the next moment. And that is why the power of Ho'oponopono takes us back to the current moment, opens us up, and we find ourselves doing all the things that would never have imagined. Because they say, what you have done, you have not even begun to imagine what you are capable of, because it is just a tip of the iceberg. But for you to experience that, you have to come with an empty cup. And I think I have talked so much. So I will ask my friends here, Audrey, who I have worked with for the last 6 years, to also share their personal journeys and how they found their power to help us be in this current moment.
Is it possible I could use the mic here?
I don't think this mic can move.
Yes. It comes up.
There we go. Oops.
Basically, what we've been hearing is that we're spirit having an earthly experience. That's what Pauline has been talking about, right? That we're spirit having an earthly experience. But more than talking about it, what she's been sharing is how do we live as spirit? How do we live as spiritual beings in the midst of the political climate in this country, in the midst of the economic climate around the world? How do we live as spirit? And so for me, in my life, my awakening is a bit different. I never associated Jesus and God. Jesus and God could not be the same, because the God that I was taught to believe in was in the sky, was a man, had a big stick and a book. And I've been talking to Jesus since I was 8 years old. I've been stealing away in that household. There were 11 children, so 13 people. I would find a quiet place from the age of 8. And Jesus would say to me that that's the church, that's not me. And for me, I was like, my father is the archbishop of all of these churches. And I'm hearing Jesus say, that's not me. That's not me. And my father did have an advanced understanding of Christianity because he did not preach a heaven or hell in the future. However, we paid for our sins immediately. And so if it looked good, smelled good, and made me laugh, I was going to be punished right here, right now. I didn't have to wait for that. I got married. I didn't want to get married. I had children. I didn't want to have children. I felt as though female sexuality was owned by men. And as a result of that, I didn't have control over my own body. And if I don't have control over my own body, there are other aspects of my life that I don't have control over, even though I'm successful in corporate America. And it appears that I am living the life. I believed, because of how I was raised, that female sexuality was owned by men, and that female sexuality was for the purpose of men's pleasure or to bring children into the world. And because of the thought that I do not want children, I was bad. And so internalizing, the Jezebel in the Bible, you know what happened to Mary Magdalene? Mary Magdalene was Jesus's lover. Mary Magdalene was Jesus's lover. Mary Magdalene was Jesus's spouse. How she got to be a prostitute, though? how she became a prostitute. Jezebel was pretty fierce. Jezebel had the prophet running. But I was called Jezebel, and so I had this fragmented life, a fragmented self. And my children are 43 and 39, and they know very well that I did not want to be a mother. Many women, when they're pregnant, oh, I'm pregnant. I was like, dear God, what has happened to my body? I don't want this. But when I asked their father to leave, they were 4 and 8, and I didn't know how to love. I could not, there was no correlation between love and the household that I grew in at that time. At 65, I can see that it was love. And I'm appreciative of that, but it was discipline, it was order. My father was the patriarch, he was God. But when I asked their father to leave, they were 4 and 8. And I prayed a very simple prayer. I said, Jesus, they did not ask to come here. Please teach me how to love my children. If you teach me how to love my children, I will go wherever you want me to go, and I will do whatever you ask me to do. And that was February of '86. And I woke up instantaneously. Instantaneously, I woke up. I didn't know. I didn't have any language for it. I'm a recovering Pentecostal. I did not have any language for what happened. We sang in church at times. I looked at my hands, and my hands looked new. I looked at my feet, and they did too. I looked all around me, and all around me shined. I asked, dear God, is all of this mine? When I woke up, I saw the world. I saw a different world. I saw the world through God's eyes. And at the same time, I had a very clear picture of the church as it existed. And so when I woke up spiritually, everything in me shifted. I owned a construction company at one time. I had a contract with HUD. I climbed the ladder of success in corporate America. None of those things satisfied my inner being. And when I woke up, the only thing I wanted to do was serve. It's hard to explain that I only wanted to serve. But the paradox in what you've been hearing Pauline talk about, the paradox is my wanting to serve led me inward. And this is what's so important to understand, because we have people running around serving that have never gone inward. We have people with no sense of self who are running around people pleasing. And so my desire to serve brought me inward. I didn't know I had a soul. I didn't know I had a spirit. I didn't know that I had a voice that people would listen to. And so everybody said I was having a nervous breakdown. Everybody said, because I was so used to solving everybody's problems. I had the answers to the world. And then I realized, no, I'm just allowing things to happen. I'm not controlling anything, and I'm loving. And I go, she is crazy for sure. One day my son came to me, and I was still using the masculine language for God. It was my process at the time, but he was 8 when I had the awakening, and he was 11 now. And he says, the only thing that's changed in this house is you, and nobody likes the new you. And so he says, tell me about this God you found. Tell me about this God. Tell me about it. And I just stopped mopping the floor. In America, we mop our floors. And I said, he walks with me. And he talks with me. He tells me I am loved. And the joy we share as we tarry there, I have never known. And at that time, it was the joy that kept me on the spiritual path. Everything in my life. I lost a construction company. I married a man who had full-blown AIDS. I dreamt it, refused to sleep with him, and beat me half to death twice. I lost my construction company. I lost my health. But there was joy. There's no way to explain that when everything around us is falling apart, that within me, because of meditation, because of contemplation, because of this desire to be of service, I had peace. And people around you, when everything is falling apart, don't understand why you have peace. But I had lived 33 years without peace. I had lived 33 years without joy. See, joy is not money, sex, who you're married with, what you do. That's not joy. Joy comes from deep within. I had never heard the word spirituality when I awakened. I had never heard that word. You're not going to believe this, but the truth of the matter is, I came all the way to California from the New York, New Jersey area. You're going to laugh. To Dr. Robert Schuller's Institute for Church Growth and Development. Funny how God works, right? God has a sense of humor. So I was in business and management, and he had the Institute for Church Growth and Development. I think in terms of management, and I saw that the church was, that the Holiness Pentecostal church was not structured so well. So I go to this Institute for Church Growth and Development, and the first day at the table where I sat for lunch was a group of religious scientists. Can you imagine that? And some of them were unity. I had never heard the words. So I had no community for years. This is something, my community was inward in prayer. I thank you so much. I feel like some of you also have stories. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to share, Pauline.
Shahina? So fun. Thank you, Audrey.
Good afternoon to everyone. I'm so thankful you are listening with so patience, and it's very difficult sometimes, but you are forced to listen us. So I'm thankful to you. I tell about myself that basically I'm an associate professor, principal of degree college in my back home. And the whole life I spent teaching my students, and I was a master's in Persian language. I did my master's. And as we know that we all are here for one reason, I believe in that Parliament of World Religions, from any cost, any religion, from whole world, we are here to share our feelings, to share our passion, and its love. We all are here due to love of each other, due to love of God, due to love of our passions, due to love our beliefs and faiths. And I believe in that we all are connected through God to this earth. I will not take more time. I will give the mic to Swami so that we all can share our ideas. I'm so thankful to you all, and I appreciate and Pauline. I was wishing that I was here in her age. I wish I was here, because as she told her story about her father and our conversation, I had experienced in my life that when I did my master's from Punjab University, Pakistan, and I was honored with first-class degree, and I got my scholarship for PhD to go to Iran for 4 years. I completed everything and came to my home, and I was so happy and excited. And I told my father that I got a scholarship for 4 years. He said, "No, you are not going there alone. You are a Muslim girl, you have to stay here with me." And everything was lost. So I wish I was in this age. I was in your age. And I can say him that, no, I'm going, and I'm not asking to you. I got this honor. I got this scholarship. So things in our life, they are very experienced. If we have more time, I can share many things of life. But I hope the next year, in next Parliament, we will meet again, we will share again, and we will be connected forever. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Just introduce yourself. It's so hello.
Thank you, everybody. we were so many hours, I think more than
1.5 hours.
Is it
Yes.
going too long?
You are
Okay.
listening patiently. Thank you for this patience. And I will not bother you that much. With only 2 to 3 minutes, I can cover my experience. What is that? Our family in India had been with one Hindu practice, and there was one bifurcation, that is Vaishnava religion. You all must be knowing the ISKCON here. The ISKCON is the bifurcation of that Vaishnava religion. Ours are a little bit traditional one, but not we are in conformity with ISKCON. And my father was very decent, very sober, very sensitive, very educated, everything. But he was having one sort of commandingness, one sort of authoritarianism. And my mother was so simple, so sober, so beautiful, not only outwardly, in every, she was hushed down, but without having any violent gesture ever. So in that way, being a preacher family, we are not poor at all, but poverty was with us. In that way, there was something I found in my family, being one kind of spiritual leader, our family, but we were having that type of spiritual, we are suffering from some sort of spiritual wealth as well. What is that, and what can be recovered is a long way journey, but I am not going to disclose that now. I just give you in askance, and whenever we can find time and opportunity, that time we can share it.
This team is coming together again at 6 o'clock tonight, dismantling patriarchy. This team and several other members of our team are going to be together dismantling patriarchy at 6 o'clock. Room number 701B, I believe it is.
So there you have it, discovering our authenticity through religion and
Perhaps they
spirituality.
want to say something. Is anyone
So anyone would like to share something?
shares?
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's all very inspiring, and that's a big thing. It's authenticity and being able to share your voices, having the courage to be heard. Yeah, thank you so much for being role models.
Thank you.
Thank you. And to what is ahead of you, Shahina, you heard what Shahina said. She wishes she was where I am, but where she is perfectly where she should be today, because everything conspired to allow her to be here today. So let's not live with regrets. Let's embrace everything that life brings to us and work with it to make this life blissful, because our life is blissful based on how we respond and react to it.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
I came here for, I'm a speaker next year in this room.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just sitting calm down and listening.
Oh, we're
Yes.
taking
But
your
I think
time.
you gave my talk already.
Oh my God, so he's ready?
We're going to talk about human unity
Oh.
through inclusion and inner transformation
Yeah.
and spirituality. So we all can go within and connect to our true self. So you're welcome to stay till 2:15. We have four speakers, but I think it seems like something in the air.
Yes.
All talking the same
Yes.
thing.
I've got
We're all
chills. Yeah.
spiritual,
I got
we're all
chills.
connected,
Yes.
and this universe is
Absolutely.
connected, one thing, and that we have
Praise God.
experienced it and keep spreading the love. Thank you for
Thank
doing
you.
what you did just now.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for
What
sharing
time?
this
What
space
time do
with
you
me.
start?
Yes.
Yes.
two,
I
two,
just
okay.
come in and heard you speaking, and it was opening my heart. And you know that I can say that everything what you said is the truth.
Yes.
And I congratulations that you have this experience, and please share, because when you serve God. So that God, through you serve God with others, and you make a better place in our world. Thank you very much for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing.
I wanted to say actually.
Okay, please.
My friend walked out and she has to present across.
Yes.
As you can see.
Can you speak a little louder? I want to.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I said that. Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry.
This can go farther.
I just wanted to say to you specifically, my friend had to walk out because she is presenting across. But she texted me when she left saying that you are one of the best motivational speakers she's ever heard. And that she really, felt that deeply. And I could see it when I was looking at her. And I think that's what she needed for herself. So, yeah. And also, obviously, you're amazing. And I was very touched by it. And all of you, I'm very grateful for your stories. Even if some of you didn't have a lot of time. But
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Something you're speaking without saying anything, the fact that the four of you came from so much different backgrounds.
Yes.
You bring a lot of without saying words also. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we have been together 4 days in a hotel, the three of us. I've known Pauline, so now we're all of us in the hotel, one room, sharing and cooking and eating Indian food and becoming family. Becoming family. We are
because
family.
remember, I am because you are.
Yes. Thank you. Bless you.
Yes.
Dismantling patriarchy at 6 p.m.
Thank you.
I'm going to be right here for his workshop. I'm going to be here.
Thank you.
Hi, Audrey.
Hi.
Do you remember me?
Yeah.
Your face was so familiar when you came in. You're Samara's daughter. Oh my God. You are Stephanie, right? Yeah. Your hair is different.
Yeah, I cut it
Oh,
off.
your hair is so. And I texted this morning. I said, "Is your daughter here? Where is she? Where is she?"
It's a
Oh
science.
my
It's not
God.
a-
Oh, I wanted your mother to
It's not
come.
like,
I
believe it or
know.
not.
Exactly.
So if
What
you
are you doing?
experience the stages
Here,
of sorrow,
volunteering?
Yeah, I'm a
knowing
volunteer.
that you are not just about
Yes.
so what you talk very much resonated. So I
Let me get a
encourage you
picture.
to
But Pauline knows your
explore
mother.
that if you're
Pauline.
here.
She knows your mother.
It's a local Canada Center.
One of my
Okay.
dear friend's daughter.
I invite you to
Let me take
explore, but this is
Thank you
exactly
for
what we're
introducing
trying to do. is Go within to experience that your spirit.
I'm going to be here for your workshop.
Yes.
I'm here.
Yes.
This
Yes.
is Samara's daughter.
Oh,
Samara's daughter.
Aisha?
Yes.
Oh, they're gonna stay here.
I know Samara. Sorry.
Maybe we'll keep it down here. Yeah, I think it's better here.
I was in Kenya. I was in Kenya. I wish she was here.
There we go.
What was
Hawaiian
I was speaking
Ho'oponopono. Yes.
Okay.
Wow.
And remind me
It's a wonderful
I love
flower.
you. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna write it down.
My work now
I
is
hug
One
you.
World Rising. And so this group coming together
I
is One
needed
World Rising,
this.
and we are going to be traveling the world.
I've had a conflict
And so
recently that
perhaps
I'm,
Austria was not
I've
on
had
the
to
list.
remind
I've been to
myself that
Germany.
I have to
So
be
perhaps
one.
we can connect.
Hi, how are you?
I have to. I
And
can't
this
not.
conflict
Okay.
had to come.
It had to.
So
It was
that
ready
it
to
can pull,
happen.
exactly, so that it can pull that voice
Mhm.
that has been so suppressed. And it's
not
time for it to be heard.
It's the loudest it's ever been.
So thank you for the conflict. You should be telling the conflict. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm
You
angry, but it's okay, and I need to be.
Exactly. And it's okay to feel that emotion, because if you don't remove it, then it comes back to you in a different form.
Yeah.
So you have to remove it.
Because
Feel it.
I know that I'll get sick if I don't. I believe in that fully.
Yes.
I fully believe in that, and I refuse to get sick.
And some of those challenges, conflicts, they are our saving grace.
always raving about.
Yeah. We don't see it that way. We only see it going
before I
forward,
get it
and we
out.
look back and we realize, wow, that is why that happened.
Mhm.
Wow,
She's
thank
the daughter.
you. Thank
Exactly.
you.
So I'm
Yes.
trying to be like, this is good. It's
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
We're humans. That's how we are.
Let's make a picture together.
So I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Please forgive me.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Okay.
it goes in some wrong place.
Thank you.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
and when I was playing,
I
it
love
felt like all my.
And you begin saying it just like words.
There's a lot of
But as you
songs
say
that-
it, yeah, actually, there's YouTube, there's a lot of meditations on it. And as you begin saying it, in the beginning, it will just be words. I love you, I'm sorry, please.
But then it'll start.
Then suddenly you realize it. Truly,
Here's a card for later on,
truly
and I
sorry.
dropped all of it.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate
Thank
it
you.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming so far.
Yeah, okay.
You're not really that far. What's far? What's close?
Exactly. That's an illusion. Time and space is an illusion.
It's not even real.
Exactly. Yes.
It's something we just
Yes.
do.
Absolutely.
Hey, Mom, can you take a picture of this? When you're done with that one.
Yes. Okay.
Come on, get a picture. We're one world rising. It's all love. All love. All over the world religion.
Shahina.
There you go.
Much better.
Yeah.
It's not doing anything.
Does somebody
give
here
you-
have a camera
let me
so we
give-
can get
yes.
one of these pictures?
Let me give you this as well, and then
It's working, it's working.
I got you. It is. There's something going on with you.
and it won't take it.
Technology.
All right,
Okay, all right.
ready, everybody, smile with all your heart and soul together.
There you go.
Love.
love.
There you go, perfect.
Love.
Oh, here, I'll give you a third one too.
Okay. But then we gotta get you in the picture.
All right, there you go.
Love.
Love.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
One more, one more.
Inside. Come now, use your feet inside.
No, that's okay, I'll take. I'll take from your camera.
But you are not inside.
Right, you need
All
to
right.
get the picture.
I have a way to do that.
All right, woo! Woo! Yes, yes! Woo! I love it! I love it! I love it!
Once more.
Okay,
my-
thank you.
Oh, precious it is.
All right, take care.
That's awesome.
One more, last one.
One more.
One more selfie.
One more with you.
Okay, Williams,
There you go.
president.
Selfie. Yay.
Okay.
I think there's a message there.
Okay.
All right, ready, smile.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank
Pauline,
Thank you. Yes.
let's do the picture with me and Stephanie, just so
Yes.
Samara can see us.
Yes.
Her mother is our dear friend.
Maybe you can send us. You can send me your hair.
I told her I didn't recognize her because of her hair.
I just cut it short.
There we go. Okay, I need to take.
Now you get in the picture.
Yeah. We need to show Samara.
Samara,
Yeah.
Samara, we miss you.
We miss you.
We love you, Samara.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, 664.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
You guys just
कितना
so
बचता है?
inspiring.
I'm really proud. Let me tell you, your team is so proud. I've never been prouder. I'm telling you that. I could have played any part in your life. It's just so humbling. That I could have played a teeny role. I mean, you are absolutely, absolutely amazing. Absolutely.
Very motivational and
Yes.
like at some points like light was pouring in and
Yeah.
it was very beautiful.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. I mean, I'm glad that I made this journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the light is shining through you.
That means party, sorry, right?
Florida originally.
Yeah.
But it's authentic. That was the name of your workshop, authentic. And that's what was so beautiful. Every word out of your mouth was authentic.
Let's go to
Yes. Okay.
All right, Team Kenya, Team Power. There we have it. Finally, guys, it went so well. You can see people are excited. Thank you for walking this journey with me. I am so proud that you guys showed up and served me. I hope you guys watch the whole of it and look forward to catching up with you guys. It went amazingly well. Divine spirit, angels, everyone was here with us. Bye. Mwah. Love you guys. See you soon. I'll catch up with you guys later. Bye.
You have also taught, you have for the same group? Are you all for the same group?
Well, we're all